Welcome to the Cutting Room Floor, a Southland Christian Church podcast. Each week, we sit down with our teachers to talk through what didn't make it into Sunday's sermon. Thoughts, stories, or questions that got left on the cutting room floor, but still matter. There's no script, just real conversations that allow us to go deeper into last week's sermon. Thanks for being with us. Let's jump in.
Well, hey there, everyone, and welcome to the Cutting Room Floor. My name is Nickell, and with us today we have Scott Nickell, who just got off stage teaching week 3.
I'm sweating to death. I'm sweating to death.
You did this last time,
I know.
too.
And I had a long sleeve on, and I just couldn't do it. So I'm not trying to just sit here wearing a white T-shirt for fun. It's just because I'm sweating to death. But you put on like a parka. You look like it's time to go out to Colorado.
This is me trying to welcome in fall weather.
80 degrees outside.
I know it is, but I was also working production, and you have to wear a uniform for that, and I want to put on something with color. I'm trying to add color to my life.
I appreciate that. Fall colors.
Anyways, so we're in week 3 of Toy Stories, and today you hit in 1 Samuel 17, David and Goliath, a story that I think probably a lot of people have heard, like you said, like flannel graphs and Veggie Tales. We've been told that story a ton. You did have an interesting point that I don't know if I knew that David had already received the blessing. That was new to me.
Yeah, some commentators go back and forth on that because especially in the Old Testament, Hebrew writers are not as interested in chronology as we are. And so there's some things that it's hard to sort out sometimes. So when you read 1 Samuel 17, 18, and so on and so forth, there are some people that disagree with that, but most people think he was already anointed. So we even see this in Genesis, like we get a couple different versions of creation, being told within 3 chapters. So I think it's similar. I think we're given he was anointed. Now here's another famous story about David and that he had already been anointed king. But if someone doesn't believe that, that's fine. I think he was.
It still adds a unique perspective, I think.
For sure.
As he stepped into that when he was, and I don't want to get ahead, but, with Saul.
Well, to your point, most people know, to some degree, the story of David and Goliath. I mean, it's a cultural vernacular, David and Goliath story,
Sports, all the different places, right. That's what they say. So,
that's right.
So today you talked, circled one thing, champion, hit that with how they labeled Goliath with the man between, and then you gave us these 4, what would you call these? The 4.
Yeah, there's 3 counterfeit versions of masculinity and one real version of masculinity in the story. You have the big bully who's obviously Goliath. You have the soft king, which is Saul. And again, in the sermon talked about we don't always think about how dangerous soft kings can be.
Yeah, that gets brushed over.
Yeah, people get hurt, people get killed because you didn't step up and do your job and take your responsibility seriously. And then there's the critic, which I was telling a friend between services, in all my teaching on masculinity and manhood and doing all these series, I don't know that I've ever actually taught this story in the context of masculinity and manhood. So this was kind of fun for me. And the one that really stood out to me was David's older brother, Eliab, who's the critic. And I had never really thought about that before, but he's clearly a critic. And in some ways, Saul is too. He's like, you're not able to go fight this guy. You're too young. You're not skilled enough, blah, blah, blah.
But Saul he could have done something about that. That's the soft king side of it.
Yeah. Also your job. You could go do it. And then the fourth one, which is the real masculinity and demonstration is a good shepherd, which David was a shepherd, but he, as I said in the sermon, was meant to be a foreshadowing of Jesus as the good shepherd, as he's called in John 10. So, those are the 4 deals on the table. And so that's what I wanted to challenge men with was, hey, man, which one are you?
Yeah.
Are you the tyrant? You're pushing everybody around. Are you the soft king? You just never get up off the sofa. Are you the critic? You sit over there on the sofa and tell other people what they're doing wrong. Or are you a good shepherd? And the job description of good shepherd is basically just be willing to die for the sheep, protect them from the predators and tend to them and take care of them and protect them.
That's good. So for people who I would go, they haven't watched or listened to the sermon from this past weekend, I would encourage you right now to pause this.
Yeah, don't listen to this thing.
Don't listen to this because there's a lot of meat in the sermon that you had taught on Sunday. Yeah. You need to go listen to that first before you figure out what's on the cutting room floor. Watch the movie before you see the behind the scenes stuff so that you have more context for it. But just in and of itself, it was a really good sermon that I think is very practical for a lot of guys to be able to listen to and apply to their life. But we're now on the cutting room floor side of things, right? So hopefully you've paused, you've gone listen, now you're back. Thanks for joining us on the cutting room floor. What hit the cutting room floor for you this week?
The thing that was in my head the most, because I had preached on this passage before, and one of the times I preached on this passage, Malcolm Gladwell had just come out with his book literally called David and Goliath. And if you've ever read or listened to Malcolm Gladwell, he had a podcast for a while called Revisionist History, I think. So one of his things was always like, hey, you thought this was this way, but actually it was this way. So he did something similar with David and Goliath years ago, where basically he said, hey, we always talk about this story as if David was the underdog, but David, his statement is like, David couldn't have lost. And he says that for several reasons, one of which he's like, he does emphasize what I emphasize today, which is that David was probably unbelievably skilled with the sling.
Sure.
So that makes Goliath a really big target, which is fair enough. Like, I'll give you, granted, right? Yeah. The other thing that Gladwell likes to point out in the book is that anyone who was that big probably had one of two conditions. One's called Marfan syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder, which a lot of people who are extraordinarily tall have.
Okay.
The other one's called acromegaly, and it's usually a tumor on the pituitary gland that doesn't stop human growth hormone from producing, so you just continue to produce it unless someone like stops that from happening. So a lot of famous people, actually, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I talked about Andre the Giant, had acromegaly. And usually there's like some pronounced like forehead, features.
Gotcha. Okay.
Things like that you would go, oh, yeah, that's how a lot of people that tall look. And so, and a lot of times because of the pressure of that tumor on the pituitary gland, they lose their eyesight and things like that, and they don't live that long. So Gladwell goes to great lengths in an entire book to basically say, like, hey, not only was he a big target, he probably couldn't see very well, he probably couldn't move very fast, and this changes the whole dynamic of the story. Is David's no longer the underdog, he's actually the one who's the favorite. And my response to that would be, fine. But guess what? Thousands of other men didn't do.
Sure. Yeah. No one else stepped up.
No one else stepped up.
Yeah.
No one else had the courage. No one else said, yeah, I'll go fight him, including the king who should have been the representative to go fight him, plus all these military-age men who are out there morning and evening just listening to this nonsense. So even if that stuff's all true, now there is a flip side argument that Gladwell doesn't, I don't think, do a very good job addressing. Like, I showed the picture of Andre the Giant in his prime. You didn't want to mess with Andre the Giant. That dude could fly over a top rope. He was super athletic. You did not want to fight a dude like him. So it also could be very true that Goliath was exactly the way the Bible describes him, as a seasoned warrior who was a destroyer. So I'm not of the mindset to really buy into a lot of what Gladwell says. The reason I left it on the cutting room floor is because that book is no longer as relevant as it was probably 10 or 15 years ago. But inevitably, I knew I would probably get somebody who'd be like, hey, have you ever read David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell? Because he says,
perspective.
So, and I got to be careful in sermons not to always take every rabbit trail based on what two people might have read. So, but that's at least worth acknowledging. So yeah, that was definitely on the cutting room floor. Because how long did that just take me to do? Several minutes.
We would be over time at that point. Yeah, that's good.
Which we were already worried about a little bit. The other one is I had a whole, this is like a document I created of cutting room floor stuff. This is my typical brainstorming thing over here. But the other one is I had a whole like paragraph that I took out that was all about feminism. So there's kind of like a landmine, and it was like, basically what I wanted to say, and I said it in a sentence today, was like, hey, what is necessary to defeat evil men? And the answer is godly men. And I had a whole like sidebar where I was going to say, and what that means is that even well-intentioned women can't fix that problem. It takes godly men to deal with evil men. So I was actually going to kind of walk through the waves of feminism, because you can make the case that first wave feminism was born out of like a desire that women were saying like, hey, we want you to actually be the men that God called you to be. Like, get out of the bars, come home, be the father, be the husband, and stop abusing us, stop, give us the right to vote, all that kind of stuff. So well-intentioned, but by the time we get to fourth wave feminism, which is where we are now, it's been so self-defeating that you can't even define what a woman is anymore. And so you have this big battle going on even in the feminist movement, where we're going, okay, what happens when now you have literally men in women's sports under the banner of feminism, and Title IX is all conflicted and all that kind of thing. So I had a line in there where I was going to say, what does it take to defeat an evil patriarchy? It takes a godly patriarchy to defeat it. So patriarchy has become a bad word in our culture and in our society, but it's not it's like manhood. It's like toxic masculinity is just counterfeit masculinity. That's not masculinity. Look at Jesus. Right? So obviously the Bible has all through it godly patriarchy. We have God the Father who's a king, God the Son who's a servant. So all that I wanted to walk through, but it was like, good gracious, if you're just coming out of, sitting in your class, at UK or whatever, and I just blow up your entire view of feminism and all that, and I didn't give it the time, which even in this podcast I won't necessarily be able to give, but even just doing that right there, that's another, 5 minutes that I had in there. So the whole point is, men, stand up. Godly men stand up. Another thing would be, and I just didn't have time, David's a warrior. He's also a poet. So we have the Psalms. He wrote most of them. So while he was out there in the wilderness fighting lions and tigers and bears and practicing his sling, he was also singing songs. Writing songs, knew how to play a harp, was a musician. And so, you think of William Wallace and warrior poets, that was my Scottish accent in case you didn't notice. You could do a better
terrible accent.
You could do a better one.
I don't think, nope, I can't. Put on the spot. There's like a phrase I need to say to get there.
Poets. William Wallace, you think of him he had this soft and tender side and this warrior side. And that's the tough and tender side to manhood and masculinity. We're called to be both. But you're supposed to be tough when you are needed to be tough, and tender when you're needed to be tender, and tender with the right people. You're not tender with wolves. You're tough with wolves. You're tender with sheep. So that was another thing that was put on the floor. Probably the last two things I would say is I had this whole thing about Rupp Arena. So I had the man in the arena quote. Representative warfare, we literally have so many expressions of this today. Think of the Cats. They are our representatives out there on the court in an arena, in Rupp Arena. They wear this thing that says Kentucky, and then thousands of people go, "You're playing for us."
You're our guy.
We say we when we refer to them. We won last night, we lost last night, whatever. Our coach, our players, so they represent us. So we can't shake this idea of representative warfare. We naturally incline that direction. And the last thing I would just say is, and I haven't really had time to hit it as much as I would like to so far in this series, maybe next week I'll get to it, but the idea of initiative. And it was all throughout this sermon, but men go first. That's the men take initiative, and women, and we'll get to this in the women's side of this series, women respond to men taking initiative. And when men take initiative in a godly way, women respond well. And so those are all the things that I had down on the cutting room floor today. So I don't know how many minutes we just took, but we cut out several from the sermon by doing that.
I'm curious. You talk about David as the poet. I think that's the piece that I see with David and Goliath. The bigness of the disparity between those two is, David's the sheep herder. He's a shepherd boy, and he just sings songs on a harp and he sang all day. Of course he's not going to be able to do this. And then it's oh no, he is vicious and he is violent and he has killed lions and bears. And you said that, I was like, I'm never going to be that guy. I'm not going to be the guy that's going to take down a lion. I wouldn't shove my wife in front of me, but I would be running.
But the answer is, you would. You're not at great risk of having a lion come your direction. But listen, if you were in Colorado and a mountain lion came out and your girls were with you, you would get between them and the mountain lion. So you 100% would. So that's the thing that men need to be reminded of and to hear, is that natural inclination. And there's actual sociological studies on this, where when some evil group comes towards another group, the women, they all circle around the kids and the men go towards the enemy. That's how we're literally wired. So you're wired for it, even though you go, I'm not the dude who's out there shooting wild animals and fighting alligators in the Everglades and stuff like that.
But I would. My inclination is to step in between whatever the threat is and my family, my kids, my wife, all
1,000%.
Yeah. Even when my wife and I are walking, we walk all the time, and sometimes we get off the sidewalk and we're on the road, and I'm like, hey, you just swing inside.
Here.
Like,
let
me be the one. Let me get hit by the car.
That's
whatever,
exactly,
whatever that
exactly
threat is, just let me take that. And she's like, well, I can just walk. I'm like, no. I just want to get hit first because I have a soft body, and that body will get crushed by the car, and then maybe hit you, and we'll be fine. But like,
that's precisely the point. I think I emphasized it a little more the second service. Like, it's not about your skill level or ability to fight off a car. you know, it's about your willingness to die for her. Why? Why? Because Jesus died for his church.
Yeah.
And that's what we're called to reflect, is to lay down our lives.
Yeah. Competence versus calling, I think, is what you had said in your sermon. I did write that down because I wanted to dig into that a little bit. When I think about the challenge of, hey, here's what biblical masculinity looks like and all that, I go, what's stopping guys from stepping into that? Obviously there's culture that's saying things to them, but I think a lot of them go, I don't even know what that looks like. Yeah. And that's where I love the idea to go, hey, it's not about competence versus calling. Maybe if we can expound that a little bit more.
A little bit it's ignorance. Like, like I made the statement, if that doesn't resonate with your soul the way it resonated with my 5-year-old soul, that might be because culture has shaped your soul more than biblical reality. That's possible. Yeah. You just didn't even know. Maybe you're 20 and all you've ever known is like women can do anything men can. You've been taught that since
anything
you were a
you can
kid.
do, I can do better.
Yeah, and it's just not true. Yeah. That's just not true at all. I could go into all the sociological studies. I could give you all the stats on when men and women are given the most choices, where women gravitate towards and where men gravitate towards. You know what women don't do? They don't go work on oil rigs in the middle of the ocean. So I could give you 1,000 examples for that. When women are given the choice, they gravitate towards certain things, and when men are given the choice, they gravitate towards certain things. Now, does that not mean that there's a woman out there who can deadlift more than me? 100%. There's a lot of women who can deadlift more than me. You know what? There's not any women who can deadlift more than the man who can deadlift the most. Right. Or the thousands of men who can deadlift more than the woman who can deadlift the most of any woman. There's just not. Yep. So we can keep living in this illusion, all day long, and all it's going to do is hurt us and harm us. But at some point, we have to pay attention to reality. So ignorance could for sure be a barrier. Fear could for sure be a barrier for men. They're going, that giant's scary. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. For sure.
100%.
Yeah, there's no way around that. Be afraid and do it anyway. So I don't know what it looks like to be a godly husband. Yeah, that's a fearful thing. That doesn't mean you shouldn't jump into it. I don't know what it looks like to be a godly father, okay? That doesn't mean you should sit back on the sidelines and not be a father. Yep. I don't know what it looks like to serve in the church, so I'll just sit over here. No. Roll up your sleeves and go learn. Yeah. So it could be fear that's driving it. Definitely could be ignorance. It could be, hey, all culture has told me is that I need to shut up, sit down, listen and learn, and stay out of things because by definition, I'm toxic because I'm a man. That's very possible. You've just been listening to all the wrong voices, man. So
they may be the loudest voices.
Yeah, depending on your environment. That's very
possible. Yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't mean they're the correct voices. Yeah.
And they're definitely not consistent with reality.
Yeah. You touched on something that I've been kind of thinking through to go, man, if we've got guys who this series has started and we've got these challenges that you've kind of given them each week throughout this series, and they've maybe tried and that just horribly blew up in their face. They're going, hey, yeah, that's great. I took a step, man. Yeah. And then I tripped and I fell and I banged my knee or I busted my arm, whatever. Like they're trying and it just keeps blowing up in their face. Like what do you say to someone like that?
Two things. One is we're going to get to the women. So the women's series coming, y'all. Like in 2 weeks from this recording. Yeah. Next week we do one more week on manhood and then we get into so we're not going to do this without challenging women. And one of the things that we will challenge women around is being responsive. So when your husband sincerely, like we experienced today, thousands of men said a prayer out loud, some of them because I told them to, but many of them because they genuinely meant it and expressed it. It was obvious. Yeah. I'm a sinner in desperate need of a Savior. Would you, by the power of your Holy Spirit, empower me to take care of and those that you've entrusted to my care to provide for and protect them? When a man tries to do that, come alongside of him, help him, support him, be responsive to that effort. Don't make fun of him. Don't put him down. Don't nitpick. Don't go, well, where you been all my life? Like embrace the fact that he's actually trying, because all you're going to do is hurt yourself if you like convince him to go back and sit on the sidelines. So that's one thing I would say. The other is, hey man, there's nothing worth doing that you do great the first time.
Yes.
So and you know that.
Yeah. But that's not what culture says.
Right.
Because of Instagram and because of all these posts, we've got people that are like, oh yeah, I tried this one thing and I was amazing at it the first time. And I'm like, I've been trying that for 6 years. And I can't for the life of me figure it out. Yeah. But then you see everyone else get it the first time. You're like, well, then I'm not meant to do that. I don't think that's the case. I just think maybe you got to work a little bit harder than everyone else.
Yeah. When men are being transformed into the image of Jesus, they age more like fine wine. And when they're not, they age like milk. I forget who I first heard say that, but it's so true. Like men either age like wine or milk. One you can't stomach, the other's phenomenal. It's fine wine or whatever. So, but that's the caveat is only Jesus, only Jesus, only Jesus. And so you may be with a man who's in process. You are a man who's in process if you're a man. So just because you weren't great at it then doesn't mean you can't continue to work towards it. Yeah. And surrendering yourself, your life, your heart to the power of the Holy Spirit. You may be trying to do it all in your own power. Are you praying?
Yep.
Are you asking? Are you reading the Word of God? How many men have I dealt with over the years who are like, man, my marriage is terrible. My kids don't listen to me. Blah, 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 blah. And I ask a simple question. Okay, tell me about you and Jesus.
Right.
And they look at me like, huh? I was talking to you about my wife.
What does that have anything to do with?
I told you my wife,
my family.
I told you my wife doesn't listen to me, and I told you my kids don't respect me. Right. I asked you about you and Jesus.
Yep.
And so many men want to point fingers and go, no, it's their fault. I'm like, no, man. It's your responsibility.
Yep.
That's what this comes back to.
Yeah. Yeah. So we wrapped up the sermon with, I would say, a pretty hefty challenge, an uncomfortable challenge for a lot of guys. I was there as they were, you said like, hey guys, step up and step out.
Yep.
And I could tell a couple guys were like, are you going to do that?
What are you going to make me do?
And then all of a sudden you saw guys move and it was like this huge mass movement.
Yeah.
And then the power behind those words. I just am curious, as you're sitting in your office putting together this sermon, why did that come to your head? Why is that something you felt like was so necessary for the guys to do? I was sitting
in last week's sermon listening to John, and it came to me, and I thought, see, we're embodied people, and moving our bodies connects with us in a different way. And so I thought, I already knew that I was going to go this direction of focusing on Goliath was the champion. He was the man between. Can you be the man in between? And Jesus was ultimately the man between. But I wanted something that would mark this moment, not just say, now go be the man between. And then it stuck with me. I was like, oh, I could just have men step up, step out, and step over. So I thought, it could be a really powerful moment in the life of our church because visual things connect with our hearts in ways that words don't, and moving your body connects in a memorable way. Like that's going to be one of those things that people are going to go, I remember that moment. And we can point to a handful of other things in recent years, and that's just going to be one of them. And God doesn't always give me those, but I felt like he gave me that last Sunday listening to John and was like, okay, we got to find a way to do this. And it because you probably saw some of the rougher drafts. Like I went back and forth on like how to do that at the end.
Yeah.
Like at first it was going to be like a promise I was going to challenge men to make to the women and children sitting around them. And then I thought, no, I can't force a man to make a promise.
He's not ready or willing to make.
But I can invite you to pray a prayer. And you don't have to repeat after me, And so that felt more appropriate for the moment at least.
No, it was really good. One of the challenges that you had for the guys is, hey, I want to, like you were saying, I want to be more like Jesus. Hey, guys, that should be our goal. It's not I want to be like David. David did some great stuff, but David was the representation early of Jesus. So if we're looking at David, we got it wrong. We want to be more like Jesus. Yeah. That's the challenge. That's the goal. And that's what we're talking about over this, the last 3 weeks. It'll be 4 weeks next week of the men's series or men's portion of this series. Man, what's that challenge? How can you we're in midweek, so hopefully you guys have listened to this. You've listened to the sermon from last week or you watched it and you're listening to this now and it's Wednesday or it's a little bit later in the week. Have you forgotten that point? Is that we want to be more like Jesus? Yeah. Give me that note or give me that again of like, okay, how and why, what does that look like?
Yeah, we're so tempted to moralize the story especially when we read Old Testament stories and things like that. We're like, and the moral of the story is, Tim Keller, before he died, he did a great job of saying he called it Mott's preaching, moral of the story. And he would say that's the wrong way to read the Bible. You know, my favorite kids' Bible, the Jesus Storybook Bible, the subtitle is Every Story Whispers His Name. So when you start to read the Old Testament, especially through the lens of where is Jesus in this story, it screams off the page at you. And so it's not to look to David and be more like David, it's to look through David and see Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's way easier for us to do this side of the cross, this side of Jesus. And so don't moralize the story. Let this remind you of who Jesus is and what he did for you. And because of who he is and what he did for you, you can. Only because of that, not out of your own willpower and blah, blah, blah. So that would be one thing. That's why I started with the first challenge is, do you need to be baptized? Like, do you need to submit your life to Jesus? Start there, because the rest of this stuff is just moralizing if not. The other would be just to ask yourself this simple question this week: who in my life is hurting because I'm not protecting them? Is it your wife? Is it your kids? Is it someone, in your family? Is it a friend? Is it someone you're responsible for at work? Like they're just getting hurt, because you're just going, I'm not going to defend you. I'm not going to step up for you. I'm not. And that doesn't always mean that you go fight everyone's battles for them. So if it's your kid and you're like, hey, they got a bully or a teacher or a thing or this or a coach or whatever it is, that doesn't mean you just go get in somebody's face.
Sure.
It might mean that.
Right.
Now it might.
Yep.
And I've only done that like twice once actually with coaches over the years. But with some teachers and some administrators I've stepped in, because I love these kids apparently more than you do. So so now you get to talk to me.
Yep.
I've actually had to do that with my wife before, with family members and people, and go, hey, whoa, hey, you get to talk to me now. No more talking to her.
Yep.
And the man that offends the fire out of people, but you know who it doesn't offend? My wife. And you know who doesn't wonder who loves her? My wife. And you know who doesn't wonder who loves them? My kids. So who is it in your life that's hurting because maybe you're not stepping up for them to protect them?
Yeah. Man, it's a good challenge. Super excited for next week. Wrapping up the men's portion of this, then we're getting into the women's, and
it's going to be super seeker sensitive next week. It's going to be just a really light and easy challenge. It's going to be
you
the
had
easiest.
Me for a second, I was like,
it's going to be the easiest thing you've ever heard. Yeah, if you thought this week was challenging, whew.
Oh,
I alluded to a lot of it today, but we'll see it next week.
Can't wait.
So,
I'm excited about it. All right. Invite a friend. As Scott just said, next week's going to be challenging.
You should invite a friend.
You should invite a friend. I think this is a great series. I've been seeing more people that I haven't seen at church for a while coming in, and I'm like, you guys are coming in at the best part of this, because this is also pretty representative of who we are as a church. Like, this is who we're going to be about. This is what we're going to be about.
Yeah, I mean, Greg said it so well here at the Nickell campus today. Our campus pastor, he was just talking about coming forward for prayer and just said, hey, ain't nothing wrong with coming forward for prayer. It may feel like you're going, I got issues. Like, can we just all admit we've all got issues?
I like that.
It's like, totally. So, I mean, I'm joking about the seeker sensitive thing, but people are so hungry for truth. We're just trying to bring clarity, and clarity's kindness and all that kind of stuff.
Totally. Totally. Awesome. Well, y'all, thanks for joining us today on the cutting room floor. We will see you next time.
Thanks for listening to The Cutting Room Floor, a Southland Christian Church podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you're ready every Wednesday when a new episode drops. If today's discussion made you think of someone who'd benefit, share it with them. And if you're looking to go even deeper, make sure to head over to our website for more resources.